I would first of all like to thank Mehta sir and Tushar sir from Periyar School of Architecture for giving me this opportunity where I will be talking about earthquake resistant vernacular architecture techniques of hilly areas of northern India. So let's start. Tushar sir, can you help me with the screen sharing?
Yeah, it should. There should be an option. Are you on the browser, the Telegram browser?
Yes, I am on the browser.
So there should be an option in the top right corner about or in the menu for screen sharing.
Just a second.
Were you able to find it?
It's at the bottom, but I'm unable to share
No.
the screen.
Okay. Uh, just a second.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Yes. So you will have to run it in this mode because if you go to the slide share mode, then the screen sharing does not catch that. So you can directly run it from the your presentation mode.
Okay.
At the top right corner where you see the share option on in PowerPoint, below that there's a small upward pointing arrow, right?
No, it's not there.
At the top right corner of the PowerPoint window. You have the cross, then you have you have share below it, and then there's a small upward pointing arrow below in the. Yes, you can directly play it from this window, I would say.
Okay, so slideshow won't work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we see now is your PowerPoint window. So
Okay,
you
so
would be presenting directly from that, right?
like how do I move to the next slide?
So you just like use the arrow keys. It would be the easiest for you.
No, it's not working.
Or if you're not like.
Okay, just Is my screen visible?
Yes, the screen is visible.
Okay. So, so basically, Indian Himalayas, they were created by collision of continental plates, which eventually created highest mountains in the world. So, as we all know, that Indian plate, it is shifting to Asia at the rate of approximately 47 millimeter per year, and India is prone to high frequency and intensity of earthquakes. So, according to geographical statistics of India, 59% of land it is vulnerable to earthquakes, and latest version of seismic zoning map of India, it assigns four levels of seismicity for India in terms of zone factors. That is zone 2, 3, 4, and 5. So zone 2 is the low level of seismicity, which is the least dangerous one, and zone 5 is the highest level of seismicity, which is the most dangerous one. So if we look at the reasons which make these areas more prone to higher losses at the time of earthquake, so the first is there is irregular structural configurations. Then there is man-made amplifications in the topography. Then earthquake triggered ground failures. And the most important is enhanced population pressure and interventions in this geo-environmentally fragile terrain. So as we keep seeing in the newspapers and social media that there is massive multi-story development which happens in the hilly areas, and this is the example of the building which was constructed on the edge of hilly area in Prabhu Nagar Kurti, and it is on the verge of collapse after the major landslide occurred in 2020. Second example we have is, which is a very latest example of September 2021, where a building collapsed in Shimla's Ghora Chowki area, which has again raised questions over the town planning and construction laws. So all these factors, they have added devastating potential of disasters to these hilly areas. So inhabitants who are living in Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh, that is the northern India, they have often witnessed the rage of earthquakes, which makes it a cause of concern. So to retaliate the harsh development conditions, various vernacular architectural practices they have evolved, which has helped to keep these seismic tremors at bay. So before starting with the techniques, so first question which arises in our mind is what is vernacular architecture? So all the participants which are present here, they must be aware of the term vernacular architecture, which is the response from a community or a group of persons need. So it is identified by use of locally available materials and knowledge, which is customized to climatic, geographical, sociological, aesthetic needs of specific localities, and it imitates the local conditions. So that is what we know as vernacular architecture. So firstly, starting with the basic house, which is present in Kashmir. So, firstly, I'll be talking about the plan of the basic house. So, it is a simple square plan. So, the functions, they are distributed symmetrically, and the staircase is present in the center. So this word symmetry, it is the basic principle for earthquake resistance, as these buildings, they respond with regular displacements along the height and almost negligible floor rotations due to insignificant torsional effects. So this symmetry is very important in the planning of these Kashmiri houses. And second important factor is the heavy outer walls. So these walls, they are constructed with heavy stone masonry for structural and climatic purposes, whereas the internal walls, they are made of thin timber frames. So if we see the vertical division of activities, at the lower level, we have a masonry platform, and we have animals and grain storage. For the ground and the first level, we have functions like cooking, dining, and living. And uppermost level, it is like an attic, which is made up of lightweight timber structure, and usually it is utilized for family functions. So this entire approach, it has a purpose. So this approach, it helps to reduce the dead load on the structures, as well as it balances the structure in event of horizontal activity. So moving towards the first construction technique, that is the tuck construction style. So, so these local people, they are involved, they have experienced. So the approaches which I'll be discussing today, they are more thoroughbred and they are constantly evolving. So starting with the first construction technique, that is the tuck construction style. So it is a composite system of building construction in which a horizontal load-bearing masonry wall, horizontal timbers, they are embedded in load-bearing masonry wall at each floor level and window lintel level. So the timber members, they have an important function to play. They serve to hold the masonry walls together, and they tie them to the floors. So it is important that these timber bands, they run all around the rooms to ensure strong resistance. And the mortar which is present, it holds the bricks apart, and the timber, it ties them together, which prevents the masonry from spreading. So the maximum room size which we take in this case is 12 feet by 12 feet. And the timber boards, they arrest the destructive cracking and they evenly distribute the deformation, which adds to the energy dissipation capacity of the system. So basically the timber bands, they prevent the wall from falling apart. Next we have is Dhaji Diwari construction style, which is practiced in Kashmir. So Tuck and Dhaji Diwari, they both are practiced in Kashmir. So Dhaji Diwari, this word means patchwork quilt wall according to Persians, and it is a timber frame onto which one layer of masonry, it is tightly packed to form a wall, which results in continuous wall membrane of wood and masonry. So the thickness of the wall is 1/2 brick, so that the timber and masonry, both of the materials, they could be flushed on both the sides. So not only we have the vertical studs, but we also have the cross members which subdivide the masonry infill into smaller panels, as you can see in this diagram. So the smaller panels are created because of the vertical studs and the cross members. So these smaller panels, they impart more strength and they prevent the masonry from collapsing out of the frame. So the first thing was that there are smaller panels, and the second thing is that here the walls are kept thin. So if the wall will be thin, the mass of the building will be less, and therefore the initial forces it must withstand during an earthquake. So the mortar and the masonry infill, it absorbs the seismic energy through friction against timber framing and between cracks in the infill material, and which helps to distribute the earthquake energy uniformly. So the probability of the collapse, it is reduced because closed space timber frame bracing, it remains elastic and it prevents falling off the wall. Third construction style is Kathkuni construction style, which is prevalent in Himachal Pradesh, India. So this word Kath, it means wood, and Kuni, it means angle, corner, that is the kona in Hindi. So this technique, it focuses on the corners of the building. So it is a type of cater and cribbage in which the wood and stone, they are the primary materials which are used for construction. So these corners, they are made up of cribbage of timber, which is filled with masonry and connected with timber belts that extend across the wall. So the width of the wall, it is defined by laying two wooden wall beams longitudinally, which are parallel to each other. And the edges of the members, they are lap jointed and they are secured with the wooden nail. So the stone courses decrease and the wooden sections gradually increase as we move upwards. So the heavier stone, they are on the ground level and the lighter wooden structures are at the upper levels. So the heavier stones, they carry the weight of the lighter wooden structure. So the surfaces, they are usually plastered for internal walls with mud, and this positioning of alternating stone and wood, it adds pliability and it provides good resistance against the seismic tremors. So this was about the three techniques which are present in Kashmir as well as in Himachal Pradesh, which use combination of stone and wood in different manners. Coming on to the conclusions. So we have seen that there is a combination of aseismic philosophies which are encountered, such as lightweight construction to attract seismic forces and a robust structural form to absorb and dissipate seismic energy. Then in Kathkuni style, we saw that there is a tradition of erecting structures over an elaborate solid and raised stone platform, which reduces the overturning effect But in Tak and Haji Diwari, which is in Kashmir, it focuses on the superstructure. So there is a concept of heavy lower floors which support the higher upper floors. So this concept is practiced all over in the hilly areas. And in response to earthquakes, the old buildings, which were built by manual labor with few tools, less formal education, and any formal guidance, they have outperformed new buildings of modern construction based on steel, concrete blocks, and reinforced concrete. So there was this earthquake in Kashmir in 2005, and when the buildings were studied, so it was found out that the buildings which were made up of reinforced concrete, steel, or concrete blocks, they all were destroyed, and the structures which had used these techniques, the Jidevari, Tak, or Katpuni, they could resist the earthquake very well. So uh, so it was found out. So after the earthquake, so people, they were more interested in these techniques, to bring back these techniques which were lost before the earthquake occurred. So now measures are being taken up, and the government is also interested to bring back all these techniques.
Aashna, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I'm just a second.
Okay, okay.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, so this was all about the presentation which I wanted to give. So, any questions or anything?
Okay. So thank you for this talk on a very interesting topic. It was very concise and informative. Students can now ask questions, and I actually encourage all students to ask the questions and get their doubts clarified, because it is a platform that is not just for a presentation of ideas, but also a platform for discussion through which new solutions can come out. And we have a speaker here with us, so if any student or any participant has doubts or suggestions, then we can have the discourse here. Um, yeah.
Tushar, before you proceed, I want to say something.
Yes, sir. Please, sir, go ahead.
One is that amongst the participants, hello,
Yes,
can you
sir.
hear me, Tushar?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Tushar, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. You're audible.
Yeah. So what I wish to say is that amongst the participants, I see Dr. Subramaniam, the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture and mentor of Periyar School of Tanjore. So very warm welcome, Dr. Subramaniam. And incidentally, Dr. Subramaniam also happens to be a co-mentor of this Periyar School of at New Delhi, and these kind of programs which we have introduced have a great input from him. So very, very warm welcome, Dr. Subramaniam, to be with us. My request to you would be that after the question answer session is over, I would like to have an overview uh, from you as to what do you feel about this particular session. At the same time, I wish the forum is every Friday, 10 o'clock in the morning, and Tushar is the coordinator. So that's about all at this moment. Go ahead with question and answer.
Yeah, so I did see. Thank you, sir, and also
Dr.
welcome,
Subramaniam, if you
Dr.
wish to say something now,
Subramaniam.
very warm welcome to you. Yes, if you would wish to say something now, please go ahead. Else, my request would be that let question and answer section be over, and then you give an overview.
Is that audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir, it
please.
is.
Yeah, it's very interesting to initiate these type of lectures. In the initial period, maybe number of participants may be comparatively less. Over a period of time, we may get more number of participants. Happy that a good initiation is made by our Periyar School of Architecture from New Delhi to reach out for the entire architecture students community. Being a sister institution in Tanjavur for more than 26 years, and this is our 27th academic year. Happy that the institution has opened up its Delhi campus. Entire South India, we are sharing the information yesterday, like all the architects groups and students groups, and everybody was happy that Periyar School of Architecture has started in New Delhi. Hope lot more programs will be organized, and our students also are participating today. In future, we will have a lot of joint programs surely, and reach out for the benefit of entire architecture students community and for the students as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you
So
so
thank
much,
you, doctor.
Doctor.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Tushar,
Thank you
go ahead.
thank you very much, sir.
And I also welcome all the students who are here. So I did see a few people wanting to speak. So I've let's see. I have Abhinav here who wants to, I think, ask a question. So Abhinav, you can go ahead and ask. Or
So I
I,
was, am I
yeah,
audible?
please. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I was going through the talk, which is a very interesting talk. Uh, I had a certain amount of questions on the kind of stuff that came in. So the vernacular techniques of architecture in the hills is all about using a lot of wood and heavy stones, both of which are done by quarrying and uprooting of trees, which would actually in the end lead to a lot of landslide, etc. So in the modern day, what do you think is like a way to kind of take learnings from these vernacular techniques and use them in the modern day context without disturbing the ecosystem?
Okay, so if we use the judicious use of materials, if we use the wood judiciously, so we can use it in the hilly areas. And secondly, even if we use steel or metals, so in in manufacturing of all these materials, lot of pollution is created. But if you are, but if we are if we are destroying lot of trees, then what we can do is we can use steel. So we can use cross members of steel like hot rolled steel or cold rolled steel, which are used in factories or which are used in institutional areas. So they can be used as cross members. So they will work with the masonry in the same way as wood and masonry work. So we can take the learning from the vernacular and we can incorporate in our present day design.
I would also like to request architect Tushar, because I've been following some of his work in the hills, and if he can add upon on how vernacular techniques have been used to build walls, retaining walls alongside um, the buildings in order to kind of make it more earthquake and uh, landslide resistant.
So yeah, thank you for the question. I would, if I have to add to this to Ashna's answer and to what you asked as an additional question, I would say that retaining walls are one of the necessities for construction in hilly areas because, for example, in one of the slides that Ashna showed, she showed one incident where the building had been built right on the edge, and due to landslide, there was now it was in a very precarious situation. So to prevent those situations, and also in cases where you build the building not on the hilltop, but let's say on either on the foothills or on somewhere in the middle, the technique to safeguard the building is to build a retaining wall, in which case we build a masonry wall which is at an offset from the building, which has a certain amount of gaps in between the construction. So what the gaps allow for is for the passage of water, which and for as well as small rubble, which in turn prevents pressure on the retaining wall and prevents from it getting dismantled. And at the same time, it also safeguards the building from any landslide or potential landslide that can happen in those areas. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question. I did see a few
Thank
more
you so
speak.
much.
You're welcome. So I did see a few more people trying to ask questions. If anybody has doubts, please go ahead and ask. Our speaker is here, and at the same time, I would also like to remind everybody that we also have the Telegram discussion channels, so you can also post your questions in there, and we'll get them if possible right now. Yeah. Okay, I do see a person. Yes, Srinath, go ahead. You wanted to speak. Srinath?
Good morning, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is the first thing we have really purchased of the building. So
Srinath, if you could
what
just
kind of
speak
building?
up, you're not. If you could speak up a little louder, thank you.
No, can you able to hear? No, can you able to hear me, sir?
Your
Hello?
voice is not very clear, Srinath.
Now, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sir. Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Can you able to hear me now, sir?
Yes, Srinath, you're audible.
Yeah. So the question
I'm sorry, your voice broke again.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So the question I want to ask is, so based on their culture and climatic conditions, they have built in such types of housings by locally available materials they have been used there. So what make them to build such types of buildings? So where they get inspired, or what make them to build such type of structures?
Yes. Okay, that's a very good question. Aashna.
Either they inspired from any kind of historical events, or what make them to inspire and build such type of structures, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, so all these techniques, they were inspired from, like, as I mentioned that Dhaji Diwali, it is inspired the word is taken from the word is Persian inspired, and Persians called it as quilt wall. So all these techniques they were dated 1,000 years back, and they were inspired from Islamic architecture. So like people, they were experiencing natural earthquakes which were happening, so they tried lot of techniques, and they came out with all these techniques um, then they came out with these techniques. And when the earthquakes again occurred, so they found out that these techniques, they were able to perform better than the other techniques. Like if there was a single masonry wall, so at the time of earthquake it fell off, but if the masonry wall had the wooden timber members in cross section or in like horizontal members were there, so they performed better in combination with the masonry than the masonry wall alone. So there were influences from the western side, as well as as well as they were experimenting. So that's how all these techniques came up.
Yeah, so I would like, if I want to add to this discussion, that vernacular techniques always develop over time, and they always develop as forms of experimentation. So because these are local conditions, the materials are available locally, as well as the problems which are only present in these local situations. So the people take that up as a challenge of survival, and they do tend to come up with different sort of experiments to make sure or to ensure that their buildings remain sturdy. And over time, as these techniques get formalized through generations and become the vernacular techniques that we now see as the construction techniques available. Yeah. So is there? Yeah. So next person, if there's anybody else who wants to ask a question. Do I see anybody asking? Thank you, Srinath, for the question, by the way. It was a very interesting question.
Thank you, sir.
There are two other people who wish to speak.
Okay. I don't see them visible on my end, but if you can tell me the names, then.
Yeah, one is Aishu Rajan, and the second is Shubham Khera.
Okay. Just a second. So they're not visible on my end, but if they do not, can't this? Let me just see if I can give them the permission to speak, because can you just repeat the names? Aashna?
Yeah, Aishu Rajan and Shubham Khera.
Okay. And Shubham. So Shubham doesn't seem to be there on my side in the list, but if I can't give them, then they can also probably post their question in the discussion channel, and that would probably also be easier for us to keep it, because then in that case we would also be keeping a track of the question, and any student who later joins in the group can also see the same questions and answers that they have. So I think I gave Aishu the permission, so they can go ahead and ask, and if I can see Shubham, then I'll give them the permission, else they can ask in the group. Yeah. Aishu, do you want to go ahead and ask? Aishu? So I don't see them here. Let me just check the group. In the meantime, if there's anybody else who wants to ask a question, then please go ahead.
Okay, I have a question to Aashna. Can you hear
Yes,
me,
sir,
Aashna?
please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, you see, trends in architecture have changed. You see, what we see is these traditional houses across the hilly areas of Himalayas, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Kashmir, and also we see similar structures in Sikkim, in the hills of Darjeeling, and many of the areas. In Arunachal has its own style altogether, and Assam too, what is known as Assam construction. Now, the rapid urbanization has a different demand. It has demand for mass housing. What do you see the possibilities of learning from vernacular structures and its application for mass housing, let's say?
Sir, as I thank you for the question, and I showed it on two slides that because of construction, because of mass housing, like we just saw in the slide, that eight-storied building it collapsed because of the landslide in 2021 September, and last year also there was a building which was constructed on the edge, which was about to collapse because of landslide. So I don't think hilly areas are we should do a lot of construction on the hilly areas, and we should restrict the construction because there is like no space, and the soil is also like the Srinagar, it was built on the lake, and the lake is silted off. So there is alluvial soil, which is very fertile, which is good for the agriculture and for the earthquakes. So if we'll keep constructing lot of buildings for the mass housing, so I don't think that hills can take the load. So we should design it judiciously.
Okay.
So, sir, can I add a little on this? On your question, I have some answers.
Yeah, Abhinav, go ahead.
Yeah, so sir, while making like mass housing on the hills, as Ashna correctly said, while it is while it is advisable not to make a lot of housing, etc., and keep it restricted to minimal construction, it's very, very difficult in a country like India where we are growing at a very, very fast pace and we have about 1.3 billion people. So we have to use every bit of land by the end of it. To do so, the best way, as she only mentioned, is the use of lightweight steel structures and cross bracing them to create a similar effect that the Dhaji Diwari does in Kashmir. Uh, so I've been working parallelly with Tushar in making some buildings in Himachal Pradesh where we are using those techniques, and we are able to kind of build quite large structures which are very, very low weight. And instead of the conventional stone, which is very, very heavy and also leads to quarrying, which eventually leads to landslides. We would we would use porous bricks, which would give a similar effect, but will be much lighter as compared to the stone. So cross bracing with uh, cold roll steel sections, uh, while with the use of porous bricks, is a very, very good way to kind of make larger housings in the hills in today's modern time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Abhinav, as well. So since we are already nearing the end of the webinars, and I don't see anybody else wanting to speak, but at the same time, I would also like to remind all the participants that the discussion group is always open, even after the webinar is over. If you have any question related to the subject, then please feel free to post it there, and we'll try to get you the answers from our experts. So I would like to thank Architect Aashna for sharing her knowledge with us, and also our senior academicians for their support and guidance. I would like to thank our mentors, Architect Pia Mehta and also Dr. Subramaniam, for their support and also for being present today and encouraging us with their words. Before closing, I would like to inform everyone about the every Friday webinar series that is being organized by the Peria School of Architecture. The webinars are a platform for professionals to express their ideas and is aimed at students and young architects. Further, we will also be running short-term courses and summer schools, the information for which will be posted in our Telegram channel. All our future webinars will also be updated and posted on the channel, so please keep yourself updated there. And in any case, any student or young professional here has any idea that they would want to share in the same manner as Aashna did, then please feel free to reach out to us through Telegram, or I will also be posting our email address, and you can send us your CV and a very brief 5 to 10 line outline of what you want to present, and we would take it further with you from there. So with this, I would like to end today's webinar. I thank you everyone present, and please have a very good day. Thank you all.